would be pretty cool. A logo Hornet at midfield and a logo Hornet logos and North Reading logos in the end zones. Track lighting, new concession stand, and storage building. Right now we have 3 or 4 storage containers.
Yeah, which I'm not going to say anything about.
It's great. I know that the boosters pay for at least one of them, if not 2 of them, and they're great. But I think it would be nice to have a complete storage. Some of the upgrades made over there, the walkway, the benches, the landscaping. I think it's excellent.
Very nice. It looks very nice.
It look nice.
But I think also potentially in the future, depending on if we continue this program, there may be even some funds that we could earmark towards the new facility that we're talking about too, the toilet facilities and things like that. So, okay.
The one other thing I did want to mention, Jerry, was we do have a guidelines for sponsorship banner approval that the superintendent refers to. The superintendent has to approve every sign that is proposed for the site.
And there are guidelines for the content.
Right. There's content guidelines that we adhere to strictly. And if the superintendent I know there were a couple signs that last year that they were thinking of selling to a couple of businesses, and they just wouldn't have been appropriate. And I think Parks and Rec didn't even go to the step of bringing them to the school department. They made the decision on their own that they weren't appropriate for the location.
And we've had an excellent collaborative effort too with Parks and Recreation on this since the day we signed the agreement. So I think it's worked out extremely well, and I hope we can continue to have that type of a relationship with Parks and Rec on this. All right, if there's no further discussion, I'm going to ask for a motion to continue the sponsorship program at Arthur Kenny Field until December 31st of 2012.
Did it go from April to, what was the date for it last time?
We implemented, I believe, in the spring, but we had said we'd do a pilot for this year and then
until December.
I think it makes sense to go through December 31st of next year, and we can review it every year. I mean, obviously the committee makeup changes, so.
So I'll make a motion to continue the sponsorship banner program at the Arthur Kenny Field for a time period of January 1st, 2012 through December 31st, 2012, with and to increase the maximum number of banners to be sold to 40, and that all banners will remain in the same location that they are now in front of the bleachers at the Arthur Kenny Field.
Okay, we have a motion by Mel. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries by a vote of 3-1 with Mr. Bowers opposed. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a discussion regarding policy DJEJ, and this is dealing with, and I think Mr. Cliff and Mike have both worked on this, and it deals with the school committee being required to have at least 3 members to sign all of the payrolls and warrants each pay period in order to pay bills or to make payroll. So I'll turn it over to whoever's going to handle that.
I can start that out. We've looked at this last summer. There was a considerable difficulty in getting 3 members in to sign. People were away, and so we're thinking about how we could address this issue. And the more we thought about it, the more we thought that perhaps the more rational thing to do with these, because they are basically put together by the finance staff, that it would be more appropriate perhaps to have Carl do the signing and have a counter signature by Kathleen. That by doing that, we're basically putting the people who are responsible for it in that order, oversight of it, putting their signatures on it, and that is perhaps more rational because they are closer to it. But before we put a policy together, we thought that it would be appropriate to just bring that to you all to the committee to determine whether that made sense here. And then we would go back and put a policy around it.
So now, to answer your question, which I'm anticipating you're going to ask is there any kind of law or rule that requires a school committee member to sign these documents?
Actually, I was going to ask that, but
Okay.
if Mel was going to
Because
ask
he's
it too.
usually
Same
pretty
thing.
consistent
Yeah,
with those
I was going
technical
to ask that
questions.
myself, actually.
Okay, so
There's
there is none
Okay.
in the state.
Do we know do we have any indication what other districts do? I guess my question gets to, since the school committee is responsible for overseeing the spending and we approve the budget, then aren't we also, even though there's no law, don't we have some level of responsibility to sign expenditures?
But we approved the budget.
We do approve the budget.
So that's where, as a board, we don't really need to get into the granular level. That's what we have the professionals that are managing the budget do.
I agree. I mean, I think it's a great common sense recommendation. My only concern when you deal with something like this is internal controls. Is there enough internal controls so that the people that are actually preparing this are not signing off on it without anybody else looking at it? To be honest with you, let's be honest. We may all look at.
I look at some of them, but I don't know what.
Yeah,
I
we're
know.
not. So realistically, we're not the right internal control
No.
for that anyway.
Plus, I don't feel comfortable as you take a minute to sign these, and then something comes back, well, you signed it.
Yeah.
Right.
You should know what you're signing.
Well, and
We should
even if you look at everything that's on there,
You
I
really
don't know
know,
what I'm
right.
really signing
Right.
for. I see how much it is.
You see the invoice.
Right, I see the name of the company, but
And you see, generally the parts and so forth,
Right.
whatever it is.
Assume it's in the budget.
right.
From Granger, valve.
Right, I have no
and
idea.
You expect
I mean,
that
theoretically, it's a different set of eyes that are looking at it, but if you don't know what you're looking at. So I don't have a problem with that recommendation. In fact, I think it's an excellent recommendation.
How about payroll? Would they even sign payroll also?
They would sign payroll
Sign everything.
also, except that we were going to change something pertaining to, we were gonna set a set rule for the superintendent, obviously, not to sign our own payroll. So it would be, Carl would sign for Kathleen.
Now, I'd like to hear from Kyle and Kathleen on this.
Well, I think it would be appropriate as a matter of due diligence. I think it's appropriate that we're having a discussion prior to moving forward here. So we'll now allow Kathy and me to now check Mass General laws to see if there are any other restrictions beyond what you've seen in policies. I think it's great that you've checked 3 other districts' policies, but I do want to check Mass General laws to
Yeah,
make sure.
Sure.
yeah, absolutely, Kyle. And I want you to be comfortable with it, whatever Kyle and Kathy are comfortable with. I mean, it makes sense to me. It's a good common sense approach. It really is. And if I thought for a second that we were going through that to the extent that we could, provide the adequate internal controls, I would say, don't change it. But I don't think that's the case. So
I agree. I
think if both their signatures are on it, then at least there's 2 different
I understand
sets of
why we
eyes
do
looking
it,
at it.
but it's
Yeah.
it's folly to think
It is.
that we are. We're another set. We're
Not
another
an
set of
oversight.
uninformed eyes. Is what we are. We don't really know. I mean, we know what we're signing. We know how much it's for, but we don't.
Yeah.
Unless
How
you
does
want
it
to spend
fit in
4
the
or 5
budget?
hours.
Right. How does it fit?
Right.
Why are we
I
spending
mean,
it?
short of finding
Need
huge
it?
payments to Carl Nelson Enterprises, I don't know that we would pick out any type of,
Don't even go there.
that we would pick out any type of,
Right.
really, it's just, I'm actually more comfortable with the superintendent and the,
And in the
business
process,
manager
we
signing.
plan on cloning Carl, but just a younger version.
Okay, that's a good idea.
When there is a transition,
That's a very good idea.
there'll be a
40-year-old
younger
Carl.
version of Carl,
Thinner version,
exactly.
Thinner and younger. Okay.
And
Carl's not
and
going
we-
anywhere.
We had considerable discussion about that and about our, about we have ultimate trust in Carl.
And Kathleen.
And Kathleen, of
And Kathleen. But, if it is a new Carl, we will obviously be more concerned about that for a while until we get a level of confidence in that. And at the same time, then, we have Kathleen looking over that person's shoulder
Right.
to see that, in fact, the chain looks right.
We're already relying on them entirely anyway.
I know.
Right, we're at their mercy.
I mean, we're a board. Let's act as a board.
Cal, procedurally, who prepares those? Is it your office, your staff that does that?
Payroll is prepared by the 2 payroll personnel.
Right.
the accounts payable, which is the bulk of what you see in the red
Right.
folder, are prepared by the two accounts payable accountants.
Accountants, yeah.
I initial every invoice in there before it's paid.
Yeah.
So they don't issue remember, town hall issues the check.
Checks,
Right,
yeah.
those go to town hall, right?
So before that action takes place, I've approved the invoice to be paid, as has the department head that has received the goods. So if something's going to the high school, Mr. Bernard initials it to say it's appropriate. The teacher initials it to say, I've received the goods, and I initial it to say it's an appropriate bill to pay.
So your IC essentially every invoice.
But
There's a
Like
chain.
workflow.
that's,
Yeah. There's a chain of
Yes.
responsibility.
yes, there is. And the town, remember, this becomes a warrant that the selectmen countersign. You know, if you're aware, the town municipal bills are also put in the mix. Town hall issues the checks and they're very particular about it. They have never and will never issue checks until they see 3 signatures. That's their rule, and I believe this becomes part of the selectmen's warrant, Jerry. Do you remember seeing?
Yeah, I think it actually is. I think it's their overall warrant that they have
selectmen
to sign
that,
on.
or is it just some?
No, I think they would, it's been a long time. My recollection is that they were doing 3 signatures too, but I'm not positive on that right
It
now.
may
may
be
be
that they
something in
don't
the
actually
charter.
see the warrants as I think
Yeah.
they see the cover sheet.
Right,
Yeah.
But I also do understand the importance of internal controls, and I balance that against the difficulty we have during the summer. The summer is when most of the bills come in, by the way, as you know, because
Yeah.
that's when we're doing all the ordering. And it's important that we maintain good relationships with our vendors and pay them promptly. That's really what's going
Right.
on, because we get calls. But I think, working with Kathy, I'd like to check Mass General laws to make sure that what we're considering is appropriate, and we can report back.
Well, exactly. I personally would like to hear them report
Yeah.
back with a recommendation, because I don't want to do anything that makes either the superintendent or
I mean,
director
even
of
moving it a
finance
step
uncomfortable.
further, you've described a workflow that could be put in process electronically throughout the town process too, from the school out to administering the check as an electronic form of payment and not even print the paycheck. Not even just the paycheck, but the payment out to our vendors.
Yeah, through EFTs. yes.
Right.
So we need to do then
But
is,
our discussion here makes me a little concerned about what's in the charter, the town charter.
Right.
And that may be, it may not have anything
not
to do with Mass General Law, it may be in
Those are
our
the two
town
areas we
charter.
need to
yeah, I checked the charter, but I'm not sure if there's anything in there specific to that or not. But what we'll do then is we'll wait for a recommendation back from the administration. When we get that recommendation back, if we have a consensus, then we'll ask the policy subcommittee to draft something, and then we'll bring it forward for first reading, second reading, and see if we can expedite that prior to certainly next summer when we have difficulty getting the signatures.
I think one reason why it might be easier for the selectmen is they meet every week except for the summer, so they probably sign them every Monday night, I would assume.
trying to
whereas
recall, Mel,
Since
it's-
we meet every other week, we have that week where
The week
they
off.
have to try to corral 3 of us to get in there, and in the summer it was.
Well, the bottom line is if you can't get 3 signatures, Kyle's right, you can't not just pay your bills.
I know,
mean,
and I remember one
you know,
time in
it's-
this summer, there was a couple times, I think, they had 1 signature, because no one was around, so.
Okay, so we'll
All right,
wait to
good.
hear back from you.
Yes, thank you.
Are
Great.
those
All
all
right.
signed, by the way?
What's
Are
that?
those all
Oh,
signed?
yeah,
Okay.
good point.
We better still sign them. We better still sign them for the time being.
All right, next item on the agenda is to dissolve the elementary school building committee. As everyone's aware, the elementary school building committee was responsible for building the Batchelder School. And once, I think, the charge to the committee was once that the building was completed and everything was closed out, and that's the key here. All the bills were paid, everything was resolved related to the building, that we should dissolve the committee. And I think, is that pursuant to a policy of ours?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
FBH.
Yeah, FBH, dissolving the ad hoc building committee. So I think the superintendent has talked to the secretary, who provided a nice little synopsis, the secretary of the elementary school building committee, Jane Swat, who, by the way, without whom we probably would have never got that project finished. But she's given us a nice summary, and it's in our packet regarding the details. And I think it is time to dissolve the committee. Do you want to add anything, Kathy?
Really, you've said it all, Jerry. I don't want to be redundant,
Yeah.
so.
It's interesting. I forgot that we had to go back and get more money, 2.7 million. Do you remember that? Initially we got 15.8.
That's
and
right.
then the